Hello, I am back. Um, I am working on a painting, of course. So, I woke up with a migraine in the middle of the night last night, and it carried on until not too long ago. And I had to take rescue meds and everything. Got nauseous, like it was gearing up to be a pretty yucky one. And it's just a bummer to to have that obstacle in my way of being the mom that I want to be for my son. And that's hard. And I've been part of a discussion for the last hour plus talking about things and shoulds and, who we want to be and how we want to interact with others and the world around us. And it's an interesting thing to think about because, like, I was just talking about how, like, my view of parenting is to be the mom that I didn't have because she left before I was 2. And, that's really important to me, to give my son a good life full of love and knowing that he's loved for exactly who he is, because I didn't have that. And part of that helps healing me because I'm giving him the grace that I never got. I was always just told what was expected of me and how, they never said it point blank, but who I was, who I am, was not what they wanted me to be. Certain family members. And that's, I know the long-term impacts that has on somebody and how damaging it can be, right? And so I am just trying to do everything in my power to shield my son from having to worry about those things in his own life. Because I just want to remove as many obstacles that I can to ensure that his life is lived as authentically as he wants it to be. I can't stop everything from happening, good or bad, but the things that I can control are the things that I'm working on. And, between therapy and being on medication and just, being a mom. But at the same time, I'm worried that the things that I struggle with mentally are going to impact my son. The fact that I really struggle with leaving the house right now. I really struggle with it. Or, really struggling with depression and anxiety and, it's just hard because I feel like the people in my generation, and some would say the generations after mine, are so aware of how our parents parented impacts us as adults. And so I'm hopeful that the things that I can control and change will help him. But at the same time, I'm just winging it. I'm a new mom, never been a mom before. But I just use all the love and the grace and the gratitude that my grandmother gave me, because she was the closest thing I had to a mom. And, obviously my dad was my dad and my mom. But I'm just trying to use all of that together to be the best parent that I think I can be. And I don't doubt my skills as a mom. I think I'm a really good mom. But, that little voice in the back of my head is just like, yeah, but, your inability to leave the house is going to mess him up, or your migraines are going to mess him up, or I don't know. That's why I want a service dog, is so I can try to be Not try to be. I just want to live life again without this big weight holding me back. And I just wish we lived in a world where access to the things that people need to not only survive but be successful were more attainable. That's like people who get migraines, right? I know for a fact that Botox works against my migraines. Had it done before, and I know that it made a big difference. However, insurance is like, that's expensive. You have to try a bunch of different medications before we'll consider paying for that. And it's like, why would you want people to have to play trial and error with medications that have side effects when the side effects of Botox are relatively low? I'm not going to say that they're null, because that's impossible. But if we know something works, why are we making the obstacle so difficult for people to get what they need to be better, to feel better, to exist better? That's what I don't understand. That's what I don't understand. Why do we live in a world, why do I live in a country where the government doesn't want me to be the most successful Sarah I can be? Why do they want to set up all these roadblocks? Why do they want to discourage people from doing things? Why do they want to make things so unaffordable, unattainable? It ain't right. It ain't right. And it's really sad that, people who are disabled, whether physically, mentally, intellectually, it's like an uphill battle. And you hardly hear of like stories where they, win, because it's just the world was not built for us. And the world has not accommodated for people with disabilities. They can say it has, and I used to date somebody who was in a wheelchair, was partially paralyzed. I really, once I started seeing things through that lens of like how accessible places were for people in wheelchairs, I can't not think about it now when I'm out in public. Of like, oh wow, that's not really accessible, or wow, look at that person parking poorly, so that way anyone in the ADA parking spot won't be able to get a wheelchair out. Like, now I'm hyper focused on that, and I'm grateful for that relationship to really open my eyes to how low quality accessibility has been. Yes, this building's accessible, but you have to, maneuver around this, that, and the third. A wheelchair could do it, but maybe it can't. Maybe the user can't. Maybe the user doesn't have that upper body strength to go up a hill. There's just a lot of obstacles, and the fact that the government doesn't care and only wants to celebrate the people who, play the capitalism game and win the capitalism game, it just doesn't feel good. So those are kind of my big thoughts. I have therapy today. Haven't seen her in 2 weeks, so I need it because I have to schedule my procedure, and I'm nervous. But I'm going to do it after I talk to her, because I need to do it. This needs to get done. I'm just scared because I don't like pain. Who does? People do. I'm not going to knock other people's kinks. Anyway, have a good rest of your Monday. I love you. Bye.